Ellis Ranson, huge celebrity stylist and influencer, was once told that fashion just wasn't for her. Well, we dive into her journey and how she made it from being told no to styling the NTAs. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So lovely to meet you as well. I know our little chat in the beginning, I feel like I've known you forever. It's really
It's
strange.
so weird, isn't it?
One Essex girl to the other. So my first question is, and I think it's good just to start with this. Who is Ellis Ranson? Tell us a little bit about you and a background.
So many people ask me this. When I actually signed with my new agency recently, they was like, you need to figure out who is Ellis Ranson. And I was like, God, I don't actually know. So I'm a fashion stylist. I'm now 30, which is crazy. I started styling at 16. So I feel like it's all I've ever done. I don't know what else there is to say about me other than, I've got the School of Style and I've started influencing a bit. But fashion styling is my thing.
Amazing. So I guess the next question I'm going to have is, can you tell us about your journey? Where did this all start? Was there a particular moment that you can think of where, the fashion passion was ignited in you?
So I feel like my family are very, very fashionable. I remember when I'd be at school, and obviously at Essex school, all the mums are very similar, and my mum would turn up really quirky, and I remember she had these jeans and I used to be like, please don't wear the dog jeans. Now I want the dog jeans, you go through that stage. My aunt used to work in PR. She used to work for Philip Green, and she used to come home with bags of Tammy Girl. So I feel like I was always very around fashion and just loved it.
Tammy Girl. Oh
I
my
know.
God.
Tammy Girl was the
memories.
best.
Yeah, it was the best.
It was good. So I was so lucky because I used to get bits from there. So I just felt like I sort of already had that around me a lot. All my family would dress really different. If you put something on, like even when I was growing up in college, I'd wear things, and the boys in my school used to think I had webbed feet because I would only wear socks and heels. And it wasn't a thing then. I used to wear such quirky stuff. I used to wear bowling shoes. Just weird. So I feel like it sort of started then. Then I went to sixth form, and my tutor actually said to me she doesn't think fashion's for me.
Why?
Well, just she didn't think it was for me. She thought I should do sports or whatever else she thought. And so I left, and I found out about the FRA. And it was the best thing I ever done, because I think I could have easily said, okay, I won't do fashion. I'll leave it here. And gone and done something else. But I left and moved forward and went to the FRA.
So,
yes.
Moving on to that, Fashion Retail Academy. What course did you do and why did you choose it?
So I did the level 3 fashion diploma and retail diploma. The reason I did that, at the time there was only that or design. I didn't feel like design was going to be for me. And I felt like with retail, it would open up more doors, because I still didn't know what area. I think a lot of people probably starting out know they want to do fashion, know that's what they love, but don't actually know. I mean, I didn't know all the jobs that even are in fashion. So I think it was just that for me, getting that experience of finding out all the different roles. One lesson was retail ops, which when you first start, you think, oh, this is going to be boring. And then you're like, actually, I use that so much now, further on in the career, buying, visual merchandising, PR, there's so many different areas. So for that, I feel like it was a really good good place to go. And also the fact that you get so much work experience while you're there. Then I did a level 4 in buying and merchandising. Which,
talk to me about the work experience that you did whilst you were there, because for our listeners as well, we talk about work experience and gaining the experience in fashion in retail.
Yeah.
Mainly because that's the biggest field that we look after. But, like you mentioned, there's so many different types of roles you can do that contribute to the fashion industry. Tell me about the work experience that you did whilst you were there.
So I was really lucky. I got to do Topshop, which
Amazing.
I feel like now that's such a big moment that you've worked for Topshop. So I did that in head office. I got to do buying and merchandising. But I actually did M&S in store. And I did visual merchandising in store, which I think as well is a job that people really overlook. It's so creative. And just being in store, it was 3 weeks, and you just basically do everything. You get to have a chance of trying out everything. But for me, I felt like just being in those places, in those environments really inspired you to go back to college and work harder? Because I thought this is actually what I want to do. But at the same time, whilst I was at college, I was working in a store in Lakeside. So I was making sure I was getting, because like you said, retail is where I feel most people start their journey in this industry. So I would do that on the side. And then I got a job at Choice Designer Wear, which again is is not here anymore. And that was a bit of an all-rounder as well. I was doing in the warehouse, helping out. I'd be helping out in store, helping out with the photo shoots, pick and pack. You know, I did a bit of everything because I think that's what you have to do. Just throw yourself in.
Absolutely. And I think as well, working in retail and doing all of those different jobs massively contribute to just understanding how this works. I mean, give me an example of how you use that in your day-to-day work now.
I think for me as well, where I was working in Lakeside in a store, you had women coming in different shapes, different sizes, different, you know, what they're into. And just speaking to customers, seeing what they like, seeing how people shop is actually a really interesting way to sort of get that experience. Also just seeing what sells and what doesn't, how things work, how things fit. You know, you can take so much from being in a store rather than just thinking, oh, this is so boring, I'm in a store.
I always say to everybody, because I'm so passionate about retail and how working in retail contributes to so many different, you know, places of work or career journeys. And you're obviously now very well known for your influencing as well. And I read somewhere that you only really started taking that seriously in lockdown. So how did you manage to build such an incredible following in such a short space of time?
Do you know what happened? I think we went into lockdown. I remember the week so clearly. I was on a shoot for Very, and they was like, everyone started talking about it. It became this big thing, didn't it? And everyone was like, we're going into lockdown. And I was like, no, we're on this Very shoot. It's a 3-day campaign. There's no way. Then they was like, we don't think Wednesday's happening. And we was all like, oh my God. Then it was like, we don't think tomorrow's happening. And then all of a sudden the shoot, everyone was like, we all need to leave. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? Then all of a sudden, from the minute I went freelance, which was scary, I didn't have a day where I wasn't working. So all of a sudden I was like, I have no work and I have no idea when I'm going to work again. And just for my own mental health, and so I just had to do something. So I was like, okay, Instagram it is. So I started doing videos on what to wear in lockdown, how to clear out your wardrobe, how to do tie-dye at home. And I just started building these videos. And I mean, they weren't anything special, but I think just because I was talking about relevant topics, people were on their phones a lot more than they are now. I sort of started to just talk about, like we've spoke about earlier, just things that are natural to me and things that I like to teach about fashion. So I feel like it just naturally grew from brilliant. That.
I think as well, you know, you're right, everybody was on their phones during then. And I think everybody was looking for inspiration or anything just to make them feel good during that time. So it was the perfect time really for you to build what you've built.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back a little bit because there's something I just want to ask you. We sort of started to dive into your initial experience in retail and your time at the FRA, etc. Was there a particular time in your early years in fashion that, you know, really ignited something or gave you the inspiration to go freelance and do this completely by yourself? Or was that a really scary turning point?
So from Choice, I went and got a job at New Look because being at the FRA, I fell in love with not fast fashion, high street fashion.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go from Choice Designer Wear was obviously a lot of bigger brands. So I wanted to go back to something that was a bit more fast paced. And whilst I was at New Look, I was just meeting so many different photographers. And this is one thing that I think is key to get on in this industry, network. So where I was speaking to everyone and I introduced myself to absolutely everyone, which at first I was so shy and I really had to push myself to do that. And I started doing these test shoots and building my portfolio. And then I was like, actually, I really want to grow this. I don't just want to be working, you know, I want to go freelance. I want to push myself. And it was so scary, so scary. But I think what happened was you get that whole imposter syndrome, don't you? So I'd be doing a shoot and I'd be like, oh, I'm not very good at this. And then I'd do these test shoots and I'd be like, actually, I can do this. I'm okay. So I feel like it just sort of sparked that going to Fashion Week, doing all these things where I thought this can actually grow and be my career. So I feel like it was a number of things.
Okay. Well, I mean, gaining your confidence, I would never, I mean, I know I've only just met you, but you come across as the most confident person ever. I mean,
which is crazy.
And that imposter syndrome, people talk about that all the time. But you've obviously done really, really well. I want to talk to you about your celebrity client base because, you know, it's what you're known for. You've got some great clients. How did you gain your first celebrity client? What was that process like? You know, were you introduced? Was it through your network? How did that work?
So I feel like I've got two stories because when I was working at Choice Designer Wear, I, on the side, started to assist different stylists and I fell into doing a music video. Then I started working for Choice, and whilst I was there, they got asked to work on this music video for Wiley and Lethal Bizzle. But then they got me in to style it. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I think I was like 18 and I'm styling Lethal Bizzle and Wiley for a music video. I was like, I did not think this is where I'd be. So I did that. And then that sort of gave me that love for celeb styling. Then I started building my Instagram. This was when I was in college. It wasn't like followers at all. It just was posting my outfits, showing what I love, doing my test shoots. And Fern McCann started liking some of my pictures, and then she commented saying, love your outfit. And this is where it's that whole, you just have to go for it. And what's the worst that someone can say is no. So my friend just said to me, just message her and ask if she needs a stylist. At the time, I had no idea what her needing a stylist would even be. Had zero idea. And I just thought, okay, I'll message her. She might not even reply. Anyway, she replied. She had a stylist at the time, which now I'd never steal someone's client. But at the time, again, no idea, completely winging it. And I basically messaged her. We met up and we just clicked, like really clicked so easily, and really understood each other's style, understood what we both wanted to achieve. And it's just been such a lovely relationship because we've grown through, you know, she's become a mum. She's, you know, there's been so many different stages that we've changed her style as we've gone along. But from that, I then got asked to do shoots for OK Mag or The Sun. And if you turn up, show up and do a good job, they're going to get you back. So then they'll get you back for another client. Then you meet that client. And it's a bit like a snowball. Once you put yourself out there, if you do a good job, what do they say? You're only as good as your last job. So as long as you keep churning out good work, you get more and more.
I think that's the point there. You said something really important, that you just go for it, and what's the worst somebody can say is no. I hear that all day long, and it's so important. It's really actually inspiring to hear you say that. What are the challenges that you faced? Are there any in particular that you've, you know, any particular challenge that you faced, you know, in your day-to-day work that have really, you know, that have really pushed you to the next level?
I think there's like two different stages of this as well. So when I first started freelance, especially, or when I was at Choice and I really wanted to get into High Street, it took me 6 months of looking for jobs, trying to find something, going to interviews, you know, and I think people see your Instagram or see where you are now and don't think that you've had to go through all those stages of not getting a job and not getting everything you go for, because it still happens now. You know, I get optioned for jobs and they don't come through. So there's a lot of rejection, especially as a freelancer. You know, not everything goes to plan. It doesn't always go right. But if you keep going and I try not to be too negative. Like if I don't get a job, I'm like, that's was meant to happen. Something better and bigger is going to come along, bigger and better. So I think that's definitely one of the challenges that I've had to learn to accept rejection.
Okay. You know. Well, then would you, I had a question that I was going to ask you later on, but I'm going to push it forward now. Would you say that would be one of the cons then of being freelance? So I was going to ask you what the pros and cons are, because obviously we're a recruitment agency and we help people get jobs all the time in fashion. But, you know, with you being freelance, I just wanted to understand any pros and cons. Is there ever a time where you think, oh, I wish I just worked for somebody else?
I think you go through days where you're like, oh God, what am I doing? But then the next day you're on a shoot and you're like, this is what I'm doing. I love it. But yeah, that is definitely one of the cons, because you're managing yourself, you're working for yourself. So it's really hard it is hard because style is so personal. So if someone doesn't like it or like what you're showcasing, it's really hard to not take it personal. But then you have to remember it's a job and people have different tastes and people have different, you know, what they like. So it's accepting that. That's definitely a con. Returns, having to do lots of returns is definitely
standing
a con.
in those queues, though.
Zara is a con. But yeah, there's a lot of pros. I absolutely love working for myself. And I think you really push yourself, and like every day is different. There's so many different challenges. But I think that's fashion in general. You know, every day is fun. You know, sometimes I'm stood on set and I think, is this actually my job? Like, what? How am I this lucky to be doing this now?
You can't still have that imposter syndrome. No way.
You do. I don't, because I think every time you then all of a sudden do something bigger and then you do the next thing and you're like, how is this happening? Or you'll be on a shoot, or before a shoot, you have this panic where you're like, oh God, am I going to bring in the right stuff? Is it going to be okay? And you do this whole panic. And then after the shoot, you're like, oh, actually, this is okay.
It's always going to be the way. And like you said, you know, your clients trust you. They absolutely trust you. And you do a great job every single time. Is there a time that you would sort of class as your most memorable fashion moment?
I feel like this changes a lot. I feel like doing my first ever red carpet was a wow moment, because you think, you know, you see the best dressed on the Daily Mail and all online and you're like, oh my God, this was me. 1 year at the NTAs, I did 10 people. And I think that was a bit of a, wow, this is pretty big. I think as well, I've been on jobs and people have said, oh, you've been highly recommended, or I'm so excited you're here. We're really looking forward to having you. And you think, God, what? This is crazy. I think they're moments that you're like, wow, this is actually happening. I'm trying to think of a real big one. There's just been so many. I feel like every time I do a shoot that's for a new job or a new client, I'm like, wow, this is really cool.
So you started with Fern and you still work with her.
Yeah.
How did that relationship blossom? I mean, how did you really get her to gain your trust? Was there a particular time or a particular outfit where she looked in the mirror and think, you get me?
I think we both have a real love for a lot of the same things. You know, if I've liked something on Instagram, usually she has as well. So it's like really learning. I could walk in any shop and I've got my clients on list and I can literally go, Kate, Danny, Fern, Megan. You know, like I just know it. I know what they like. I know what body parts they like. I know what they don't like. I know what colours. I feel like it just becomes just knowledge to me. I don't know. It's really strange. But there's been so many times where Fern completely trusts me. She'll say, if you think this is going to work, this is going to be good, we'll go for it. There was a lilac suit once. Fern hates lilac. But this suit was going to look so good on her. She's so tall, isn't she? And just looks amazing on a red carpet. And it was literally about to leave the door and she was like, do you think this is definitely what I should wear? And I was like, yes. And the next day she was like, I'm so glad you told me to wear this.
That's brilliant. I mean, there must be a time where you're battling against them, like, please just trust me. I know what I'm talking about. And then when they see themselves, they're like, oh my God. So that must be a really satisfying feeling.
Yeah,
I think it's the same in retail. You know, if you're speaking to your client and you're trying to assist them and you're trying to guide them into what they should buy, once you get past that hurdle, it's then smooth sailing from there, because you get it right once, they know that it's going to happen again. I know that you work with a lot of assistants because it's impossible for you to do it all, especially, you know, I watched one of your YouTube videos where, you know, you were styling about 20 people at the same time for the NTAs. I'm like, how is she doing this? And then I heard you say, look, I've got an assistant here and got an assistant there. What do you look for in an assistant?
So this is something that a lot of, obviously, assistants ask me. Something for me is proactive, like just being on it. You know, if I'm on a shoot, I want to turn around and the suitcases are already, everything's out, hung up. You know, you don't have to. I think something that I learnt from my aunt when she was hiring a lot of, in her job, she used to say, in fashion, you can't be a textbook. You know, things happen. You know, it's crazy. Like, nothing goes straight forward and plain sailing. Like, there'll be situations where you just sometimes need someone who's just going to be like, right, I've sorted it, don't worry. Or, it's just being a bit more proactive, and someone who's like really dedicated and up for getting involved, like will get involved, get their hands stuck in, not just be. I think along the way recently I found a lot of people are like more interested in Instagram and what they're posting rather than actually the love of fashion and getting involved.
And I'm sure that you can say this quite honestly, but it's not all glitz and glamour. It's hard graft.
But this is why I had to start the School of Style, because there's been so many situations where I wish I had someone who, as much as I had the FRA and that was amazing, but I went down a buying and merchandising route there. So then to come away and be a stylist, I didn't have that guidance or someone to be like, it's okay. You know, there's been so many times when I've come home from shoots crying because I've messed up, or so I just felt like I really needed someone. That's why I wanted to start the school, to be able to guide people, to understand, you know, it's a lot of skills. Styling isn't a skill. Styling's personal. Everyone's got style. But it's whether you can style someone else to a brief, on demand, to a budget, and all these different skills. So I think that's where I wanted to give people guidance on what a stylist is.
So talk to me a bit more about it. What is it? I mean, for those people that maybe don't follow you yet or are not aware of the School of Style, tell us more about it. What is it? What do you do?
So it basically is a 6 weeks masterclass. It's online. So every week we do an online session. It's meant to be an hour, but I go well over an hour. We get guest speakers on from the industry, so industry experts, other stylists. I teach you how to build a portfolio, how to gain contacts, network, how to invoice, how to pull, you know, everything that is involved in being a stylist. The different types of stylists, you know, there's not just celebrity styling, there's personal styling, there's e-commerce styling, there's so many different areas, and there's so much work that I don't think people realise. But I'm actually now introducing a day masterclass, which is going to be really exciting. So it's a bit more of a smaller one, but I want to get, you know, recruiters in to help.
Hi. Here we are.
Yeah, so I just think, for me, it's like I want to be the styling big sister, you know, someone that the girls all ask me questions still when they leave the calls, you know, and a lot of them have really done well. I've had, you know, one of them's been on tour styling Blue, one's done Sam Fairs, one's done Rochelle Humes that assisted with that. Some of them, one done in One Direction, one of the guys from that music video, you know, it's really, and it's one of those things, and that's what I say to everyone on the calls. If you put in effort and time and work at it, you'll do well.
It's exactly what we say all the time. And it's not about them having experience, it's about them being hungry. And this is what I can really get from what you're saying. It's about them having that passion and that initial drive to want to do well.
Exactly.
And that proactivity as well in everything. It's so important. It shows that they actually care. Do you ever steal some assistance from your School of Style?
Oh yeah. I've started an agency.
Amazing, you see?
So now I've got an agency called House of Style. Everything's got to have style in it. And I send them all off to work. They all get jobs, and yeah, it's amazing. Because I think if you've, like I've seen from the school, there's so many of them that are passionate and really do push themselves and throw themselves into it. So I think I'd be silly to not.
Absolutely, especially when you see that talent and you think, my God, if I can't do something, I'm going to trust that you're going to do it.
Exactly.
And this is actually something I wanted to ask you. I'm a control freak in my business, and I think most people that own businesses sort of have a tendency.
Oh my God, yes.
It's really scary, and it took me a long time to let go and delegate. How do you know in an assistant that if they're in another room styling one of your clients or supporting you, that you can just let go of that and you know it's going to be fine? Does that take you a long time?
Yeah, I don't think you ever fully let go. You know, I think when it comes to styling other clients, or if they're in a room, I'll set up what I want them to wear. But then I trust that they will know if something doesn't look right, they'll mix it up or change it. But that's through just, I have them on set with me, so I see how they are on set and work with them. And then I can trust that they'll go off and be okay.
That's really good. I mean, I still struggle. I mean, I'm very lucky that I've got an amazing team, but it is so hard to find great people nowadays. And that's why we're needed. Hello, everybody. You recently posted on your Instagram, and I found it really interesting because we do that a lot. You put together a list of some really great interview questions that you were suggesting that anybody that wants to get into fashion should prepare. And actually I read them and they're absolutely right. And I would say exactly the same. Are these questions that you ask people that you're hiring potentially, or are these questions that you found that you had been asked a lot in your career path?
I think a mixture of both. And even as well, I don't necessarily go for interviews. I have discussions and then get the job or don't. which is quite nice. But even on set, you'll be in any sort of fashion environment. I think it's really important to know those things, you know, what trends are in, what's going on in the fashion world, because it's good to be knowledgeable, and, you know, knowledge is key. So I think it's just something that you should always brush up on and know.
Absolutely. Do you find that it's difficult, especially being so busy, keeping up with all the latest trends and trying to keep ahead of the game? Is that really challenging?
I feel like I will go on ASOS every morning and have a flick through. I sort of have that dedicated time where I save everything on Instagram, even if I don't read it right then. I feel like it's really frustrating because you're always on your phone. And I feel like as a stylist, you wouldn't imagine that would be something that you are, but you are. I'm constantly researching, constantly looking into things. You know, if I know I've got red carpet season coming up, I'll start looking months in advance, start saving. So I feel like I'm just, it's like, I don't know, you don't even think about it, just subconsciously always taking everything in.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a particular trend at the moment? I mean, there's definitely one that I'm excited about, but is there a particular trend at the moment that you're really excited about?
I want to know what you're excited about then.
Anything 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's how I grew up, so it's combat trousers and tight little tops.
Isn't it crazy that it's back in?
Yeah.
So I do love the 90s. I'm loving the whole sherbet lemon being a new colour, which is fun.
I just saw your post on that, actually. I thought that was so cute. Really nice.
I didn't love the whole Barbie pink. I loved it because everyone was so immersed and obsessed, but pink's not for me as a colour. I do wear it quite a bit, surprisingly. But yeah, I'm loving the sherbet lemon. I'm ready for like winter, as much as I don't want winter. I'm ready for the wardrobes.
Don't wish it upon us yet, Ellis. Don't wish it upon us. We're sitting here in 32-degree heat, sweltering. Don't wish it upon us. No, but you're right. I think, you know, it's, as a stylist, it must be hard if there's something you don't particularly like and it's very much in, and you want to, you know, your client may want to, you know, be involved in that trend.
But that's what you said about knowing those things. You know, if I'm on a shoot and they're like, not sure about that, I'll be like, but did you see the Dior runway? They was doing this. So if you've got something to be able to back up what you're doing, or, you know, if your client's like, is that cool? And you'll be like, yeah, but did you see Hailey Bieber was wearing this, or Hailey Bieber's stylist put this forward? You know, you can always back what you... So I think it's important to always keep up to date.
Well, it's good what you were saying about your research then, constantly being on that. You must have sleepless nights, I can imagine.
Just scroll.
I think we're all doing it. At least you're being, productive with yours. Now, most of our listeners and my network and our network here are in retail currently and on the shop floor and encountering their clients all the time and essentially being stylists every day. If they are, you know, aspiring to be you, what advice would you give them?
So I think definitely put yourself forward, go for everything, you know, say yes, make sure you're available to get involved. Like, I did so much work for free when I first started out, and I don't think we're in that world anymore. I don't think you have to intern as much. You do get paid now. But I just made sure I was always just did as much as I could. I really think building a portfolio, you know, if I look back at some of my first test shoots, they are awful. And I cannot believe what I was thinking, but it was practicing, and that was getting used to messing up, making mistakes, you know, message people. You know, when I first went freelance, I wanted to work at Amazon because at the time that was the place to be. It took me 3 months of emailing, hey, just wanted to check in, you know, don't be afraid. And what is the worst that someone's going to say? No. And also, I think I've learnt along the way as well, every room you walk into, every person you meet, and I know this sounds a bit, but is an opportunity, and you just don't know. And, you know, they say, like, it knocks on everyone's door, it's who opens the door. And I just think, just go for it. Just make sure you, just get involved and take everything you can. Just take something from it, even if it's, you know, I did buying and merchandising. I didn't go down that route, but now I really understand that world. So I think don't ever see anything as a wasted opportunity or waste of time.
And I think what's important for these people that are listening, you know, thinking about taking your road, tell us a little bit about the day in the life, because, you know, even me, when I was working in retail and I was, you know, styling people every day, I think, right, I want to do this on my own before thinking about recruitment. it's not all glitz and glamour. I know we touched on that. So talk to us about a day in the life of Ellis as a stylist.
It's really hard because no day is the same. So I can do like a bit of a week. So I could have a day in the week where it's prepping for shoots. I mean, for next week, I've got 4 shoots going on and I need to prep for each shoot. I then have to worry about if any of my clients have got events, so then I'll be prepping for that. I then could be on a shoot whilst prepping. I could be doing a returns day. Then I have to fit in Instagram filming. So it's sort of like a real mix. But as a stylist, you could be meeting with PRs. You could be going for lovely lunches for PRs. You know, you can have a really glamorous day where you're like, this is lovely. I'm going for a PR lunch. I've gone shopping, grabbed a few bits. Then you have a day of shoot, which is fun. You're on set, you know, styling up, steaming clothes, you know, making everything look great. Then you have the returns day, getting back to the PRs. Was everything used, you know? So there's so many different aspects so it's never really a straightforward day in the life.
I can imagine. I think it's with most jobs now, especially when you're on your own. But it is a business. You run a business. So talk to me about the business side of being a stylist. How does that work?
Yeah, so obviously when you're a stylist, you're creative. So it's quite tricky to juggle admin, invoicing, you know, tax, all of this stuff that I'm like, God, my accountant had to come and meet me. He was like, we need to sit down because you're not getting it. I was like, I know.
I think if I didn't have CJ, I think my accountant would,
No, it's
just not an admin person.
I'm not. And I don't know if it's like because I'm not or I just don't want to be. So I have to have help with that side. I have like a virtual PA who helps me out with my invoicing and now with House of Style booking the girls for different jobs. So I feel like that's keeping hold of your receipts, you know, your diary, because there was a point where I was still holding on to my file of facts because I didn't want to go digital. And then I was double booking and it was just getting too messy. So I was like, right, the file of facts has got to go. So there's so many things like that. And obviously I've got different businesses now. So I have my styling business. I have Ellis Ranson as a influencer as such, House of Style and then School of Style. So it's like juggling all of them at the same time.
But it's nice to hear that you have help because I think
you have to.
So many people be thinking, you know, but how can I do all of that on my own? When the truth is, you know, you have to have a great support system around you in order to be successful. I know that as a business owner, I'm not here on my own. I know, you know, my business is my name essentially, but I've got so many amazing people that help to make that clock sort of work, if you like. And it's nice to hear the same.
And I just think investing in yourself. So for me, if I pay for someone to do those things, I can spend my time doing something that's more beneficial and going to help me grow. So although at times you feel like, oh God, I'm paying for this, I'm paying for that, in the long run, it works out. We all go and pay and get our nails and hair done. So that's something, it's an investment. So for me, it's definitely, I've always said it, I would always, self-invest.
So if somebody was starting out, and when we were discussing how we were going to ask you this question, we come up with a good way actually. If somebody was starting out and had absolutely no idea, wasn't on Instagram, essentially if somebody's mum called you that had no idea about social media and, any idea about how this all works, and their daughter who was 16 was obsessed with fashion and wanted to start being a stylist, or that was her ultimate overarching goal, how would they start?
So I think it's so hard, isn't it? Because we've become such a world of Instagram. But find any company or find a stylist that you love their work, maybe a celebrity that you like, find who their stylist is, find a magazine and just intern. Maybe, magazines like Fabulous Mag, they still have the fashion cupboard. Try and find out if they've got any space. Just get as much experience as you can. And once you go to one place and intern, usually they've got a friend who then needs an intern somewhere else, and just maybe spend a good 6 months of, working for people, getting some experience, and then, you'll start building a contacts.
Amazing. I think as well, we talk about this all the time, and as long as what you said before, you are passionate and you're hungry and you're willing to put in the work, we're not going to get something for nothing. It's, putting yourself out there and getting that experience, and even, working in retail really helps, as it helped you. So what does the future hold for you? What are your aspirations and goals?
It's so hard. There's so many. Where do I begin? I want School of Style to really grow because I'm so passionate about it, and I absolutely love, I feel like you get to a point where you actually want to go and help people. I do a series with CR UK, which is all about sustainability and, how important charity shopping is. So I want that to build up and House of Style to grow with my agency. So I have loads of stylists that you can get jobs. And yeah, I think keep building myself as a brand as well, but then still style along the side. I want to still do a lot of fashion campaigns. I just recently did Pets at Home and a Pepsi, things like that, which are really fun ad campaigns. So I just think every day I'll have a new goal.
I think they're great goals, and I love the idea of the School of Style. It's something that I'd love to get involved in and be a part of. It sounds amazing. My last question to you, Ellis, is what legacy do you, as a stylist, as an individual, as an influencer, hope to leave on the fashion industry?
That's a good question. Do you know what? I think with the School of Style, that's a space where I think it's really introducing new people to this industry. I think definitely as stylists, a lot of people, especially the people who've come onto my course, think that you have to be a certain person, look a certain way, be an it girl, to be a stylist, or for people to even be interested in booking you as a stylist. And I think that's something that I hope can really grow with School of Style, getting such a bigger, wider audience of stylists.
Amazing. Ellis, it's been such a lovely conversation. It's been so nice to get to know a bit more about you and your journey. And I hope that our listeners are inspired as much as I have been. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.